Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Then and Now. I'm your host, Brandon Hodnett. Today, I'm joined by Marshall Schmidt from the class of 1947. Marshall was a tennis star at Swarthmore when he put his education on hold to join the U.S. Navy and fight in the Pacific aboard the battleship USS Wisconsin. He returned to Swarthmore to complete his degree in economics, and then 5 days after graduation, he married a third-generation Swarthmore student, Kinnie Clarke, from the class of 1946. The two have been married for 73 years. Kinnie was sitting just off screen during this interview, and you may hear her input at certain points. The two have been a part of Swarthmore in different roles for their entire adult lives, and two of their children and three of their grandchildren are Swarthmore alumni. Marshall, thank you so much for joining me today on Then and Now.
Well, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Well, we're not bad. Kinnie will be 97 in June. I will be 95 in February.
Okay.
We're both active. We're both vertical. And she's got a hearing problem, but I think the fact that we've both been very athletic all through our lives, won the 9-hole champion at Springdale 3 years ago. Not many 91-year-olds win golf tournaments.
Yeah, that's
regardless of whether they're 9 holes or only 8 players or not.
an accomplishment. Now, do you both live in the Swarthmore area still, or are you?
We're in a senior community outside of Princeton.
Do I understand correctly that you grew up in the Swarthmore area, pretty close to the campus?
Well, I was born in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So not originally then. Okay.
We ended up in Swarthmore in 1937.
Okay. And then you went to Swarthmore High School?
Class of 42.
Okay. And so
at the beginning of the war, when you graduate from high school with the war Pearl Harbor 6 months earlier,
yeah,
you don't go to Amherst. Particularly if I was a tennis player, I played tennis for Ed Faulkner, and in June of 42. Coming out of high school, I had played in a tennis tournament. I had played in some of the local Philadelphia tournaments, but there weren't many. I mean, there was a war going on there, but there was one at Idle Hour, and I got to the semis. I got beaten in the semis. So Ed knew he knew about me from being number one on the high school team. And so Ed invited me and another freshman that he had recruited from New England, number 10 in the United States, number 1 in New England. And so he and I were the two freshmen that played on the 43 team. It was 43 at that point. And so I'm a 17-year-old freshman civilian. And we played a full schedule. I can remember some of this is in this story I've written for you. I can remember vividly going up to Army and going into this big mess hall with all the cadets at lunch. And we walked in and here these 6 or 7 scrawny kids from Swarthmore College and all these handsome, busy Army trainees. And we walked in and there was this rousing cheer. And as I say in my thing, we lost 8-1. No, we were cleaned out. We lost 9-0 in a hurry. That's the way I put it. But Ed invited Bruce and Daniels and myself to work up at Buck Hill that summer. And so not only did Ed know me from the high school, but I actually was one of his 2 boys on his tennis program up at Buck Hill Falls. Ed was very much a factor in my early college life.
Hmm.
And at that time, you know, he was a famous, internationally known coach. And I've got a sentence in here that he would report um, that his tennis friends would always come to him and say, Ed, why are you staying at Swarthmore? Why don't you get a big job at doing tennis coach pro at this and those over? And Ed's answer was always, I am very proud to be on the Swarthmore College faculty.
I do want to ask you a couple more questions about Ed Faulkner. What was he like as a coach? Like while you were playing, was he, actively involved while you were playing? Like was he saying stuff from the side?
Oh no! Oh
No.
no! He was very quiet. Ed was nationally renowned. I mentioned coaching the French Davis Cup. Mentioned working for him up at Buck Hill Falls before I even got to college, because he knew me from Swarthmore High School and local tennis. Ed would bring his famous people in, whether it was Fred Perry or whomever. Tilden, all those people occasionally would come in for a weekend with Ed at Buck Hill.
What was it about Ed that made him such a good coach and such a good teacher of the game?
He was very quiet. He wasn't vociferous. He would, if he was making a change in what he thought you should do, whether your footwork was wrong or he did it very quietly and not with no anger. Or I've never seen Ed mad. Anyhow, the number 3 player did something he didn't like and he benched him. The other thing that Ed did was that he never allowed a challenge match. If he placed me at number 2 and I stayed at number 2 all year, that's year with the Navy when the VTL came. There were no challenges. He didn't want anything to. He was running the team.
Yeah.
And he didn't want a lot of stuff going on with angry competitive problems. So I mean, this man was extremely well known as a marvelous coach. Yeah. And so I have a few stories about him, but we had some when the 44 year the V12 was there. So all of a sudden there were no more scrawny civilians playing except 2 of us who played at 1 and 2. And but we did much better that year. Yeah. The war is over. I was late getting into the service. As you see, I'm 2 years younger than everybody else of that age. And so I didn't get out of the service until May of 46. And I had, so I had to make up a couple of courses in my sophomore year, and Amherst was having a summer session for veterans coming back. So I went to Amherst and took 3 double courses and got credit for the sophomore and then a full credit for the junior year. Okay. So I came back to Swarthmore the fall of 46, and Kennie and I were engaged at that point, and she had graduated in 46, which I should have if there had been no war. So I graduated in 47 on a Monday, and we got married on the following Saturday.
Wow. How did you 2 meet at Swarthmore?
We were a freshman class together. We started this. We met on the introductory day down by the Crumb. I was well aware that Kennie was coming to school. Our parents knew each other. Okay. Because she lived in Wallingford and had gone to George School. but our two fathers were businessmen in Philadelphia. They belonged to the Union League. They knew each other. There was a Thursday night discussion group, and they would know each other there and so forth. So our parents knew each other long before we met. So
Okay.
it wasn't I had a great advantage with competing against some of the other guys that thought she was pretty neat too.
And now how many years of marriage has it been?
73. We have 3 kids,
Yeah.
10 grandchildren, and at the moment, 6 great-grandchildren.
What was Swarthmore like living, being on campus in the 40s with the V-12 program there, the height of World War II? What was it like?
I think from the girl standpoint that there were changes, but there were lots of boys. And they took all the regular classes. We were still having, that was the 42-3 winter was still the dining room tablecloth, wait service. That stopped when the Navy came. I was on a $500 scholarship, which was a big scholarship in those days. There were 600 of us in undergraduates in the early 40s.
No, I think there were 900.
900. And then, of course, in came 200 or 250 V-12ers. And the big news then, of course, we were getting athletes from Rutgers and Haverford, and a lot of Haverfordians came. And the football team that year beat Princeton 3-0. And the Princeton people up here don't really want to hear that. Swarthmore beat Princeton in football one time. I love to tell this story. I was on scholarship, I said. I worked in the library, was part of my scholarship. And I also took attendance at collection. I don't know if collection was every Thursday.
Every Thursday at that point, okay.
Yeah. So here's the Navy all there having to go to collection. I'm a civilian. I take attendance and I'm first in line for lunch.
Nice.
Never heard the speech all season. Never heard the program.
You were skin and bones.
And I weighed 140 pounds when I got married.
What are some memories you have of playing tennis at Swarthmore? Any fun stories from the
I think so, because I already alluded to some of them. The first year we went to West Point Navy. We lost 9-0 to Army, Navy, and Penn, and we won all the rest of our. So I think we were 6-3. But then sophomore year, my sophomore year, while the V-12 was there, and I think we did pretty well. I don't remember how well we did, but the 40, and of course I wasn't there for the 46 team. I didn't get back until the 47 team. The 47, the captain from 46 became the captain of the 47 team, and my roommate, and he played number 10. So you could see what the returning veterans did to, and these were very, very fine tennis. This was a very strong team, and I think everybody thought we were going to beat Haverford. And whatever happened, because I'd had a 3-hour, 3-set match, Ed was not thrilled with that. Even though I may have won, I forget. I don't remember whether I won or lost. But he was not thrilled having to sit around watch me play for 3 hours. And so I did. He scratched me for the Haverford match, and I was just as glad, because I probably would have lost too. I could sit there and watch and not have lost at Haverford.
What was your time like in the service? I think I read you were on the USS Wisconsin. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reported to the Wisconsin shortly after Labor Day. And I got there because my father knew the skipper. When I came out of boot camp, 800 guys went to the LSTs and I went to the Wisconsin. You know, knowing people and having pull is very important in life.
Yeah.
And so they reported I got a week's leave, and we left. When I got back the next Monday, we left Philadelphia on our way to the Pacific. The Wisconsin was the fourth of the big new battleships. They were the Iowa class battleships. They were the Iowa, the Jersey, which was where the Navy were Halsey and Spruance. There were two alternated. The two men alternated command. But when one of them was in charge, it was the Seventh Fleet, and when the other one was in charge, it was the Third Fleet. I think a lot of civilians back home thought we had two fleets. They were the same 60-odd ships. But we got out there as the war was coming up through the Philippines. And so Spruance refueled every day. But not Halsey. He would only refuel every fourth day. He was going to be much more busy fighting a war. And on the fourth day in December 12th or 13th, anyway, a hurricane came through, vicious one. I was not on duty, but I can remember the ship would go up. Here's this big 36-ton battleship.
Yeah.
2,800 men on it, like a stick of the ocean. And Halsey tried to refuel, and we couldn't. And the only casualty that Wisconsin had was one of the crew was watching from the front deck, and a wave picked him up, dumped him in the water, and then pushed him back up pushed him back up on the fantail with a broken leg. And that was our only casualty. And I can remember Wisconsin for the whole Navy, the entire Navy for the next 2 days didn't try to fight. We tried to find guys in the water.
Wow.
And, I can remember completely. If I was on duty on the bridge on the 12 to 4, midnight to 4 o'clock watch, nobody was allowed to speak. You were up there. Everybody that was topside was listening. And that's an eerie feeling, and it's a sense of, obviously, it's with me still today.
And where were you on VJ Day?
We were about 80 miles from Tokyo.
Really? Wow.
And MacArthur was going in on the Missouri, and the papers were signed on the Missouri. So they brought the Emperor out.
I'm sure there was celebration on board your boat.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What was it like for you to come back to Swarthmore after, having experienced the war firsthand like that, and and seeing the world in a way that a lot of people hadn't seen?
Well, when we came back to Swarthmore, first of all, there were a lot of people. All of a sudden, who'd been students who came back, and my tennis partner and I were in B section on the ground floor at the entrance, and we were supposed to be 2 threesomes, but what we did was we put 6 guys on the I'm going to call it the west side, and 6 guys on the east side. And I, being a townie, we had lamps and we had radios and we had that was our social room, and the room where we had 6 beds was a pigsty. But that was the way we spent senior year. And of course, Kinnie's family lived across the Crum. And so I would paddle my way over across the Crum most every night.
Oh, wow.
And she had gotten a job, which she got a couple of jobs, one with Bell Telephone and one with the bank. And she found teaching school to be much more of interest to her lifestyle. So after we got married, she taught school at Lansdowne Friends and so forth.
Okay. And what did you do after graduating?
I went, my father I got a job right away with Drexel and Company, which was the leading investment banking house in Philadelphia and very important nationally. They decided after I was there maybe 2 or 3 years to put me into the trading department, stock trading. And I became the first municipal trader for Drexel and Company in Philadelphia. I was just a branch trader, municipal specialist. But that was during the time when the SEC rules were beginning to be written. So my job was to write the rules and be the SEC policeman in the firm, and I bought all the equipment. I bought the leases. I did the leases. I designed 2 office buildings, Detroit and Minneapolis. No, Detroit and Cleveland, and I was the compliance officer. So I had 3 different assignments, and when I resigned in 1970, they replaced me with 3 people.
How did you stay involved with Swarthmore after graduating? And from
I've done everything. I was first on the alumni council, and then I became chairman of the alumni world. I was the alumni. I was also in charge of the alumni fund. I went up through the ranks. I was appointed to the board as an alumni manager, and I spent 4 years on the board. So I paid my dues going up.
If you could somehow summarize it all, what has Swarthmore meant to you throughout all these years? And I'm sure, maybe that's changed over the decades, but what would you say Swarthmore has meant to you?
Well, it's been our lives. It still is our lives. I've taken on the class agency in the last 5 or so years. Not a lot of class agents out there for the classes of 46, 47, 48, 49. And I haven't really published anything recently because the only thing you publish are deaths, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
But
I think we've been very proud to be Swarthmore alumni.
we're very proud.
It's been extremely important to us. It's just been part of our life. I mean, we are just Swarthmoreans.
And when living in the town, living next door to it, it's always been terrific. But as I say, I've done everything there. I've been everything from a member of the alumni council to a board member. So I've put a lot of work in Swarthmore. Spent a lot of time, and disliked vigorously Swarthmore's role in making the Blue Route a 2-lane parking lot from Chester Pike to Westchester Pike to the airport. That was one of the reasons I was never reappointed. I never voted with the board on that.
I think that Swarthmore has just been influenced us all through our life. Not just our 4 years in college. And college is so different today than it was in our day.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it has, as I said, it's been a great influence. It continues to be, and we want Swarthmore to be the very best that it can ever be, and that we can be the best we can be.
I really appreciate Marshall and Kinnie. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
I don't know if you noticed, but we loved it.
Yeah.
We're thrilled to be Swarthmore alumni.